Day and good morning. The Committee on Education, Air Transportation, and Statistics Research and Planning will now convene this informational briefing. Today is Thursday, June 13, 2019, and it is now 10:45. For the record and in accordance with the Open Government Law, public notices of this hearing were sent to all stakeholders, senators, and main media broadcasting outlets on Thursday, June 6, 2019, and a second public notice on Tuesday, June 11th. The agenda for today's hearing includes the following items. We are here today with the superintendent and the principal and assistant principal for Teton High School athletic facilities to talk about the budget and the timeline for the construction. Before we begin, I'd like to recognize my co-chair, Senator Amanda Shelton. Thank you for coming. The purpose of this informational briefing is to address the May 24, 2019 letter from the Superintendent, John Fernandez, calling for assistance regarding the Teton campus, one of which includes the Teton High School athletic facilities. We'd like to attain a better understanding of the cost associated and the timeline of construction for the athletic facilities, so we may know how to best support the Guam Department of Education. The letter also included an attachment of a petition requesting athletic facilities at Teton High School, which was signed by approximately 800 stakeholders to include students. We have with us here today the superintendent, Ms. Duenas and Mr. Ponzalan, and forgive me, sorry, Mr. Romero, forgive me for not being able to recall. For the record, we are going to discuss the Teton facilities, and I guess, Mr. Superintendent, we will begin with you and just go ahead and state your name for the record. Thank you.
Hafide, thank you, Vice Speaker. John Fernandez, Superintendent, Guam Department of Education. First of all, I just want to thank you for holding this hearing, and I do know that we sent a letter primarily addressed to the governor, but also copied with you as the committee chair, copied in as well as a number of other stakeholders, including the principal and administration of Teton High School and others around the Teton area. So I did provide a brief testimony for your review, and I see this as really as an opening of the discussion with the legislature, again, just to provide you better information and understanding of where we are. But really, we were at a point when we sent the original letter to the governor of seeking some support from the legislature and the governor's office in trying to look at the options for developing athletic facilities. We can talk about budget and timeline, but a lot of it was really dependent on, understanding the situation at the Teton campus, and looking at the options for land and resources and so forth. So we're at the very beginning of it, but I wanted to take you through the context for that discussion. So on May 24th, I sent a letter to the governor, and I detailed a number of issues that we hope to work on with the executive branch, as well as with the legislature, including the specific need for athletic facilities at Teton High School. The letter that was sent was really an effort to begin broadening discussions regarding the Teton area. Right now, with the right planning, investment, and coordination, we see the potential for Teton to become a hub for community and economic activity, anchored by the Teton Education Campus that currently exists. So this campus, what we're calling the Teton Education Campus, consists of Teton High School. We know there's Guahan Academy Charter School nearby, Science is Fun and Awesome Academy Charter School. The Guam Trades Academy recently acquired space and will be there in operation in short order. And then the Guam Department of Education central offices. So that's what we have been calling the Education Campus. Nearby are the Salvation Army, United Airlines hangars, Guam Customs and Quarantine, Guam National Basketball Gym, Guam EPA, the Police Department headquarters, Barragata Recreational Fields, and the old Carnival grounds adjacent to the Barragata Post Office. And then interspersed and surrounding these uses are privately owned lots and old naval facilities that are potentially ripe for future development. Access to the site is relatively limited. It's at the intersection right across from the Golden Sea restaurant. But we've been looking for other solutions for access. So with this in mind, I initiated conversations with the governor's office, the Department of Public Works, with Guam Economic Development Administration, And I'm hopeful that we'll get the assistance of those agencies to help us increase access to the site, and then also look at the right kind of development and planning that's needed to really make this overall area, not just building by building, but the overall area, something that works to support the educational and community uses that I think are potentially viable. With regard to Teason High School and athletics facilities, as you know, we opened the school during the summer of 2014, and then in 2015 we were able to open a new high school gymnasium, which now is home to the school's basketball and volleyball teams, as well as a place for school gatherings and pep rallies and other activities. They call it the throne, and it really is the centerpiece for the Teason campus. At the opening of the gym, then Governor Eddie Bozacalvo committed to the Teason community that the administration would work on solutions to create outdoor athletic facilities for the school, including a track, football, soccer field, and possibly baseball and softball fields. Unfortunately, due to a number of factors, those plans were not realized, and because of this, I wanted to revive the school's request by asking Governor Leon Guerrero through GITA to help us to develop options for financing and building the facilities needed by the high school. And in a sign of support for this effort, faculty, staff, and students did reiterate their support through a petition that was forwarded to the governor along with the letter. So I want to thank you for holding this informational briefing to gather more information relative to the high school's needs, and then we hope that the start of this discussion will help us all to plan more broadly for the Teason area and create more opportunities for recreation, economic development, and community benefit than exists today. So with that short opening, I just wanted to be available to answer questions. I do have both the principal and assistant principal at Teason High School who can talk more specifically about their needs if needed, and then Randy Romero was involved as our capital improvement projects person in basically most facets of the effort to get Teason High School ready to open as a high school, actually since it was a middle school. And actually, Ms. Duenas was there as an administrator when it was shortly there as Antlan Middle School. So they're familiar with the campus, and then the ongoing discussions about possibilities for a facility. And so we do have a map of the site so you can better understand what we're talking about. And we do have one proposal that has been floated earlier but has never come to reality that is available that we can talk about if you'd like. So if you allow us, we'll just share this map with you. Not right now, yeah. So, if you're familiar with the campus, within the yellow lines are the property for the Teason High School, and the centerpiece is the gym in the middle, which is newly constructed in 2015. With regard to their existing facilities, they do have some, I guess I would call it athletic facilities other than the gym. I mean, there's an old basketball court, an old small track. It's not high school competition ready. It's not track standards. There's some old tennis courts, and then there's a soccer field here that's been used. It's not it's maintained for play, but it's not really upgraded to the level that you would want. So what you see here is the existing property line. Within the blue line is the central office property line. And then you'll see there is existing, because this came from an earlier discussion, there's existing Cortec property around here in the red. And then the pink area was the Guam Trades Academy, which recently acquired that corner property. So this is the central site. Obviously, there may be other options elsewhere at Teason, but to bring the committee up to speed, in earlier discussions with the prior administration, there really was an effort to kind of figure out how to make this campus kind of work and ensure that there weren't these strange uses that might pop up that don't align with education. So one of those issues is there's a warehouse behind the headquarters that used to be a basketball gym that they were running with Guam Elite Basketball, a nonprofit. That came back to, I guess the lease expired. So that's an available warehouse. I don't know if they're marketing it. And of course, we wonder what that kind of use would be, basically taking the parking lot that we're currently using behind our headquarters. There is a corner lot behind the new warehouses at DOE that's vacant. And then there was this strange, almost landlocked property that is right in the middle of the headquarters and Teton High School campus. So, right, CTI, the Cortec International. So this is just a reflection of earlier discussions where we had talked about with the previous administration the possibility of acquiring the rest of that site and turning that into a facility for track and field. But at this point, because we were basically a tenant on the site, what the request was for the governor was, can we have a representative with the economic expertise and development expertise to kind of engage with us to see what is possible? Are these sites available? Are they something that the government would be willing to look at? Is it, I don't even know what the value would be. Or are there other options around the area that we ought to be looking at? So in addition to that first page, you see that Guahan Academy is in blue. This corner lot, I guess we need to update this. This corner lot where the soccer fields the soccer fields on the corner used to be, they're unmarked, but they're now part of CIFA. So now it becomes almost this rectangular campus that, I think would anchor the Teton area going forward.
So the Teton High School campus that you've bordered out in yellow, all of this is government's land?
It's under the Cortec lease, which I believe is a lease to own. So as part of that, the government would own the property at the expiration of the lease.
What is the expiration of the lease?
Do we know? 2040 or something around 2040, as I understand.
2048?
Yes, I'm not a expert on the lease, but so that obviously again the lease was negotiated through the governor's office, and we can confirm the information. It's also in our audit, the information regarding the lease. But I believe it's around 2040 that would be. And
then also the GDOE central offices are part of the lease as well.
That's correct, including the GACS buildings and that corner property.
And can you just remind the public how much we pay monthly for the lease? I mean, at the beginning of the year in January.
I believe that the annual cost for the lease is about $10 million a year.
Okay. Till 2048.
2040.
Okay. So we are also looking to obtain CTI property in order to build out on the football, soccer, and track field?
Well, I would just say this, that this is the option we had discussed before. I think if possible, and if it was a reasonable cost that would make sense, then I think we would like to see that as an option considered. But obviously that would require more resources to make happen. So I think, let me go back. The reason why some of this has been in discussion before is that prior to the completion of the headquarters, there had been a previous discussion with the governor's office and with Cortec to see if we could do a swap, because instead of building the two warehouses, we were hoping to obtain the two existing warehouses that were there and the property and the parking that you see in the back of the headquarters. Mm-hmm. So that parking has been subdivided now between 3 different owners, so it's a kind of a complicated situation in back. So we had hoped to, at some point in the middle of this construction, we had asked whether DOE warehouses 1 and 2, which are new warehouses, which could have been just swapped with the existing warehouses and then have the parking lot developed and then forego the construction of those warehouses. That didn't come to reality. So what we have now is this strange situations where we do have the warehouses, which we appreciate, Trades Academy on the other side, and then this weird property that, to be honest, we're using partly for parking when we have meetings and conferences. And so we've been talking with the Trades Academy we're good partners with, but we're wondering, both of us, what happens if Cortec leases that out to like a mattress warehouse or something, that some other industrial use that it's zoned for, and what does that mean for us working, the parking back there and the access to the site and so forth. So those are things that are still undetermined.
So there are 2 parcels of property that you're looking at to obtain for the Teton High School facility, which is owned by Cortec.
Correct.
One of it will be the other half required to build the soccer and track field. And then another one will be the CTI property. So for proposed parking lot.
So those 2 were referenced in the letter as part of that. Those are the kind of 2 irregularities that are that would complete some of those issues with the headquarters and with the school.
The food assistance program? that you're moving out of PD? You're placing in the
Right.
warehouse that you're
Right, that would be an option. So as I mentioned before, it's either some other agency would have to take it over if we were able to lease the PD site out, or we would have to find a way to accommodate it. It's a very important program. Typically in the States, it would be handled through public health or through the educational department, but usually through a nonprofit. But on Guam, I think the issue has been, even if a nonprofit were to take it over, or public health from DOE, they would still need a warehouse to store the commodities and so that's been a challenge. I think we've explored that in the past, but because nobody's had a warehouse to operate, DOE's been charged with trying to carry that out. So that would serve a great purpose. It's got a loading dock and everything if that were available.
Do you have a cost estimate? I know you stated that you needed $300,000 for equipment to begin. I'm just wondering what type of equipment, and then the cost estimate for the build.
Right. Well, for the actual field, it's going to be it's going to be a higher price, I think we're estimating about $1.2 million to construct a field from scratch. So that would mean a track and field like you see at JFK or GW. Those are two projects we've recently done. So that would be the construction, the laying of the concrete and then the coating on that track. The other expensive item normally is going to be your field lights. So the field lighting. So based on the estimates for what we've recently done on field lighting and the track, and then of course the civil work to level out the playing fields. That would not include whatever the acquisition price would be for that property. And to be honest, we haven't really engaged with Cortec on that possibility. I know that at some point they had proposed possibly making it available, but we thought it would be more appropriate if an agency that had that expertise could be involved, and such as GITA. So we did ask. I do, even though I haven't received a formal response, I do believe that GITA is ready and prepared to step in and assist on this project in response to our letter. And so at least to lay out the options, let us know what's feasible, not feasible. If there are other options that would make sense, we could at least explore that. But we definitely didn't want to go out there and start costing things out for things that are not within our expertise. But from our experience, about 1.2 million would be a high school facility starting from scratch.
Well, maybe also then the T's and lease can be negotiated if additional property is required. Because
Right.
if you roughly count just from 2020 to 2048, that's $280 million.
Right.
Just
Right.
that's an extremely high amount of real estate, $280 million just for government of Guam to acquire this property to do the lease. And so maybe we can also see if you can decrease the price. I mean, I really think that.
So that's been discussed in the past, and I don't know that it's out of the question. Because we haven't been directly involved in those, but it's for those very same reasons that I did recommend to the governor that there be a representative, not only to oversee and ensure and enforce the existing lease, but even open up discussions about negotiations. So I had suggested that maybe GITA be in this new administration, that maybe GITA would be the appropriate place to do that. In the prior administration, it had been negotiated out of the governor's office, and I don't know the extent of anyone else's involvement, but because there was a change in administration, I know that for the first few months, we're not really sure if anybody is taking that as a direct responsibility. So we thought it was important whether to open it up or to renegotiate, that there be someone designated. Usually people look to me and say, what about the lease? And I have to keep reminding us that we weren't even involved, and I don't even know who to approach to do that negotiation if that were the case. But definitely would want someone who would be more appropriate as a property manager, a lease, do the lease review and even think through what these options were for a renegotiation.
Yeah, because I'm just thinking, right, Mr. Superintendent and Principal Duenas, the military gives Guam $77 million.
Right.
Through the taxes of the soldiers, the airmen,
Sure.
the Navy, being here, right? Through that kind of tax payment back. And so
Right.
I'm just thinking, if the military owns a big parcel of the north or owns 1/3 of Guam's property, and and we receive $77 million yearly. We're paying $280 million to a private corporation. Really, that's
Right.
essentially was to begin with the people's land, and then transferred to the government, and now the government's leasing it back. So
Right, there's a very long history of this
it is.
particular property.
So I'm just hoping that that we find a way to, if this is the plan, I'd like to see Tees and Grow. I'm just hoping that we discuss
Right,
these issues included that we are experiencing with the lease, because this is,
right.
I think it's an injustice for the government to pay this much, the people to pay this much. And so I hope this will be part of the discussion if and when we move forward with Gita and the governor's approval to,
Right, and
especially to find the money. I mean,
Right.
maybe they can just put it on there as an incentive.
Right, I guess, and I
For
guess,
free.
right, I guess for me is like, I don't even, I think for me what we're asking is that there be someone designated to have those conversations, because I've heard the concern of the legislature, we get asked a lot of questions, but really it's, the question is that there ought to be a designated representative.
Right.
That was my concern when I said, is anyone in charge of this lease, and, that would take on these issues and ask questions, because right now nobody's talking about solutions and
Right.
the future. We're talking about, the existing lease. And we work well with Cortec as
Right.
far as the results of the maintenance and trying to work through those issues. But with regard to the bigger picture, the lease and other items, we kind of, allow the governor's office to take the lead, since they would be technically, they're the landlord of the
Yes.
site. So it was just a matter of designate a representative
Yeah.
who can then start that conversation, and who knows where we'll end up.
Right. So perhaps we can appeal to their good stewardship
Yeah.
and see if
Well,
they can just give us the property, as a warranty deed of gift, instead of us having to pay additional costs.
Well, I always say that it doesn't hurt to ask.
Right?
So, the thing about it is that, I think if I'm asking, it might be different from the landlord who's got a relationship to ask. And so, again, we didn't push for Gita to say this is the only solution. We said, but we do need somebody kind of there officially to be that representative. We'll be happy to work with them and others. Cortec, they have other business interests across the island. Yesterday, they just gave scholarships to some of our students, and I think they'd be willing to discuss. It's just who's at the table, and
Right.
how do we make that discussion happen?
Okay. Would any of the representatives like to make a comment, or Ms. Duenas, the principal of Tees High School? Please go ahead and state your name for the record.
Sophie Duenas, Teton High School principal. I'd just like to speak on behalf of the school as a school principal, and I like to also reference our accreditation report. So in 2018, we had our full self-study visit, and part of the recommendations was to continue the discussions to build out the facilities for Teton High School, especially the sports facilities. So I'm just glad that we are here having this discussion, and I want to thank the superintendent for continuing to advocate for us as a school to be complete with all our facilities. The other part of educating students, and aside from all that and all the talks about the finances and everything, is that in order to send students out whole, we need to also include their athletic abilities and all things like that. And so we just want to also advocate for our students, make it complete. We do work hard to go out and find facilities for our students. So although we don't have a football field, we have built a football team, but we're able to go out and use our resources around the island to get a facility for them to use. But it would be nice that the students who are in there would not have to travel distances every day for practices or even for games, or that they need somewhere to call home of the Titans. Also for baseball fields, we have gone to as far as using the field in Chalampago as a home field for our students who live around the Barragata area. We've also used Paseo Stadium, but again, it's a matter of students who are having to transit from school, after school, to those facilities to have practices. But I don't know if Mr. Ponzalan wants to say anything more, because he is the one that's been working directly with the teams. So I think I'm going to give him a chance to say some things as well.
Thank you, Joel Punzalan, Assistant Principal, Teason High School. Also in charge of interscholastic sports. Being an athlete myself, representing Guam, on national teams when I was younger, I know the importance of having sports in high school. So you can't really call it a complete high school if we have to travel places a lot of times, renting places out, paying to actually just practice. So to have it, it would definitely make it a home for our kids to have a facility, a fully functional school and a facility for our kids to have. It's been 5 years we're here. We've made it to the championship, in baseball even, and we've had to borrow other people's fields. So imagine, and I tell the kids all the time, because sir, it's so difficult. We have to come back, can you open the back gate so we can walk out, so if our kids could have a facility like, some of the other schools, then I know that that will just build morale. And we're really hardcore on pushing family and being together and have one as a community. And this would definitely be one of those that helps solidify that.
Thank you very much. And I'd like to, state that for me personally, I believe that Teason High School does need a facility that you've explained, because it's very difficult for parents and students to move around and jump from village to village to see where they can use facilities. So I wholeheartedly support this endeavor, and let's just see where we can go with this. And it's been 5 years, so whatever push you need from me as the oversight chair or my colleagues, please let us know, and we'd like to be able to support you in moving this forward.
If I could add just one more piece, is that, another key component here is the mayor of Barragata has been very supportive with Teason High School in that whole area. And I know that they've been looking for recreational facilities as well. And so I know I told her that it's happening. I know that she maybe had other things to do on short notice. But if there is a future meeting, I did talk to her, in terms of the needs, not just for the school, but for the village, in terms of really looking for opportunities for the community as a whole to benefit. So most of the kids coming at Teason are from Barragata, the limitations there. So she just wanted to express her support, and I'm sure at a future meeting she'll be willing to come in and also testify as well.
Yes, that's absolutely right, because last term we did a rezone for a majority of the Teason properties. So perhaps some of the landowners that the benefits of the rezone went to, maybe we can avail to them for a public-private partnership as well in the development of these facilities. Right? We saved them a good deal of money for that too. Right. Okay. Is there any questions from the panel?
Sorry, Superintendent, can you just clarify, you mentioned that you did ask the governor already for a representative to go into these discussions with Cortec?
Well, I asked the governor if they could designate someone to not just discuss this bigger issue, but also just to manage the lease. Mm-hmm. Like someone, there's someone there to be, if there's a need by the school or there's an issue that comes up at the headquarters. I mean, we do deal directly with Cortec and their vendors, mm-hmm. but in reality, if you're living in an apartment building and you have an issue, you should go to the landlord and mm-hmm. make sure that there's an official resolution. We don't normally run into that issue, but there are occasions when I think that would benefit. But then, aside from that, we do think that and I'd hate to give them assignments, but I did ask the governor if they would, and I think they're supportive. But I think the issue was, if you look broader than this site, I think there's just incredible opportunity as well. And my biggest fear on the downside is that you'll have a mix of industrial uses and other vacant lots and other things around school campuses, and who knows what's happening with the GPD headquarters and whether they'll always be there. It's nice to have them there. They're in barrack situations too. It's nice to have, police cars and, circling here and there. Gives us some assurance. But with regard to access, again, there's only one way in and out of the site. So we've been talking about how do you reopen the tri-intersection. There is ongoing, I know there's ongoing activity behind the post office development as well, potentially access near the post office. Just yesterday, I was talking to SIFA. They may have some access to within their properties, the easement, part of an easement that could be made available. It's just someone has to bring everybody together and say, what do you guys want to see for the campus or for this area overall, and then make things happen by leveraging resources in the right way. and not just have a smattering of different activities going on. And then we end up at the end of the day with a puzzle of different uses that don't necessarily make sense. So if they just start the conversation, we'll be happy to pitch in with our ideas and our support, and then let's see what happens when everyone gets a little bit better coordinated.
Yeah. Yeah, so thank you. So you have requested that, but you haven't heard back yet from her?
Informally, I've heard, yes, we'd love to support that and would definitely, but I haven't seen anything formal yet. So I did reach out to Geeta and said, just let me know if this is something you're doing and when we're ready to start meeting. But not yet anything formal, so hopefully something soon.
Okay, yes, hopefully soon. And thank you all for being here to start this discussion. I think we look forward to some movement soon.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you all of you for being here again today. It's summer, so thank you for taking the time out of your summer schedule. It is now 11:15. We have exhausted all items on this agenda. Thank you very much, and have a good day. God bless.